Tonight on Frontline.
The execution is a signal to all dissidents that they will not tolerate any dissent.
By executing my father, they have accelerated the change that would come to this country.
Undercover and inside Saudi Arabia.
What's this?
The poverty.
I'm going to show you how people live here.
The protests. The demands for change.
I try to represent their rights. Some of them don't believe that it's their own rights, or they just fear freedom.
And the kingdom at a crossroad.
Saudi Arabia is facing some of the biggest challenges it's ever faced. The oil price is low, youth unemployment, regional instability. You could almost argue a perfect storm.
Tonight, Saudi Arabia Uncovered.
Tonight's program contains graphic and violent imagery. Viewer discretion is advised.
In Saudi, they say, be careful. The walls have ears. The walls have ears. Fear has taken over the entire population, from the elderly to young children. The regime wants to keep everything secret. If the truth comes out, it'll be the beginning of the end for them. No one can express themselves freely.
Yasser is a young Saudi dissident and activist. He belongs to an underground network that films and publishes videos of life in Saudi Arabia the government doesn't want the world to see. Now he's come to Istanbul to collect an undercover camera. For the next 6 months, he and his fellow activists will be filming secretly. If caught, they could face years in prison. We've disguised Yasser's voice for his safety.
Yes, there is danger. But the world needs to see how we've been living under persecution and slavery for decades. I will do what I need to do and try to show the awful reality to the world, and whatever will be, will be.
This is the story of the men and women who are trying to force change in Saudi Arabia, and the regime that is trying to stop them. Yasser lands in the capital, Riyadh, a bustling, modern city of more than 6 million people. Saudi Arabia is a key U.S. ally in the Middle East and the world's largest oil exporter. Its state oil company is worth an estimated $10 trillion. The face of the new king, Salman, looms large over the streets. A single family, the House of Saud, has ruled the country since its founding. They subscribe to a strict form of the Sunni branch of Islam, and the country is run according to Sharia law. The royal family and their inner circle are among the wealthiest people in the world. Yasser films an avenue of palaces. This is the Saudi Arabia the world usually sees, a country of wealth and luxury shopping malls. But the global crash in oil prices has hit the Saudi economy hard. Although the Saudi government has spent billions on social welfare, as much as a quarter of the population is estimated to live in poverty, a reality rarely seen.
I'm going to show you how people live here.
Yasser brings his hidden camera to a slum on the edge of the holy city of Mecca.
People are living in real misery here. Children selling things. Oh my God. Look, it's a dump. Look at the sewage. The way money is spread, it's kept among the ruling family. It's not spread to the people. Only what's left, the crumbs, are spread to the people. So there's great inequality between the classes.
Much of Saudi Arabia's wealth comes from oil fields in the east of the country, home to the Shia Muslim minority. One of Yasser's fellow activists is filming here. The East has not seen the oil riches like other parts of the kingdom. It is the heartland of opposition to the regime. It was here 5 years ago that the underground network was born. As the Arab Spring sparked revolutions in countries across the Middle East, protests erupted in the regional capital, Qatif. A young cameraman, Ali Filfil, began filming the government's response. The Shia were protesting discrimination by the Sunni majority and demanding recognition of their rights. Some of the protesters were armed and violent. The government saw them as a threat to national security. The cameraman, Ali Filfil, came under fire. Ali Filfil was shot in the chest. He was one of roughly 20 protesters and several police killed over the months that followed.
Filfil was just trying to get the message out. He sacrificed his life for that. His death was the spark that lit the fire.
After the deaths, the demonstrations escalated, with thousands of Shia hitting the streets. One of them was 17-year-old Ali Nimr. He was outraged at the deaths of the protesters. Ali used his cell phone to record himself confronting police near his house.
Ali is an Arab boy, like any other Arab boy. He dreams of freedom. He dreams of respect, dignity.
Despite being warned not to talk to the media, Ali's parents decided to speak about their son.
Ali went out to protest for human rights. They were meant to be peaceful demonstrations. He was just a 17-year-old asking for social reform.
But Ali wasn't just an ordinary protester. He was the nephew of Sheikh Al-Nimr, widely seen as the spiritual leader of the Shia uprising.
نحن على امتداد 100 عام نعيش ظلم وجور وخوف وترهيب لا نخاف الموت ونعشق الشهادة.
For the Saudi government, Sheikh Nimr was a dangerous revolutionary with ties to their archenemy, Iran, inciting his Shia followers at demonstrations.
My brother Sheikh Nimr became an icon. That's the reality. He had a big effect on a whole generation of young people. This might not please some people in power in our country, but that is the bitter truth.
Sheikh Nimr tapped into resentment among the youth in the east of Saudi Arabia. But now, protests began to spring up across the country as discontented Sunnis also took to the streets. For activists like Yasser, who is Sunni, it felt like the moment they had been waiting for.
We all really felt that the time had come when we'd be done with the tyranny that has ruled for decades. We felt victory was within our grasp. So it was a big disappointment after all we'd done. It was frustrating, shameful, and very sad.
In 2012, the Saudi authorities cracked down hard, rounding up protesters. Sheikh Nimr was arrested and charged with treason. So was his nephew, Ali.
Ali called from Riyadh prison, and he asked me about something that was written in the court papers. He'd been charged with sedition and treason. Ali is a young child. He asked me, "Dad, what does that mean?" Ali asked me, "What is treason, Dad?"
A Saudi court convicted him of organizing protests by text message and participating in a terror cell. He was sentenced to death. His family says he was tortured into confessing.
Him being part of a terrorist organization is very far from what Ali believes in. It's very far from that. They are only asking for reform.
The sentence really shocked me. I didn't expect the judge would dare sentence a young boy in that way.
The regime has no right to execute them. They're sentenced with this because they want to crush any groups that ask for reform in the country. Here's my son Ali at nursery school with the rest of his class. And these are the last pictures I have of him before he was arrested.
Saudi officials publicly defended the arrests and said Ali's uncle, Sheikh Nimr, was inciting terror and attempting to overthrow the government.
Our response is that he's a terrorist. He is as much a religious scholar as Osama bin Laden was. He was implicated in inciting people, recruiting people, providing weapons and munitions for people, and he was involved in attacks against security people.
Ali was used as an instrument of pressure when it comes to Sheikh Nimr's case. Even if these charges were proved against Ali, they don't deserve an execution. This is, of course, to put pressure on his uncle, Sheikh Nimr.
Ali joined 3 other teenage protesters on death row.
I might find out at any moment. While listening to the radio or television, hear an announcement about his death from the Ministry of Interior. We won't know in any other way. It could happen at any moment.
The popular uprising that Ali had been part of was stopped by late 2012. The king at the time, Abdullah, had introduced a program of reforms that was widely seen as a way to appease the population.
From a Saudi point of view, they have seen what happened with the Arab Spring and with other countries, and the government is certainly intent on maintaining stability. My analysis of why the Saudi government didn't fall is they're a lot more responsive to their people than Mubarak regime ever was, or Gaddafi or Assad. They don't have a traditional democratic system, and they're not very tolerant of dissent, but they do listen. They listen and they respond.
King Abdullah introduced welfare handouts of more than $100 billion, some social reform, and employment opportunities for the poor. At the same time, the regime stepped up its use of strict Sharia law to control the population. In Saudi Arabia, executions can be carried out publicly with one sword blow to the neck. The underground network tries to distribute videos of public punishments caught on camera. This Burmese woman was convicted of sexually assaulting and killing her stepdaughter. Headless bodies are sometimes put on display as a warning. The Saudi government says that only the most serious criminals are executed, and that punishments are carried out according to Sharia law.
Since the Arab Spring, Saudi Arabia, I think, is undergoing an identity crisis. On the one hand, they are talking about changing the economy of Saudi Arabia and genuine political reform. But Saudi Arabia last year in 2015 executed more people than ever in recent memory. And the judiciary and the legal system are basically an arm of the regime to institute its policy against dissent.
The regime basically shuts down the opposition. It imprisons them. It attacks them. I don't think this is Islam. All the people are angry, but the problem is they can't speak. Everyone is scared of being imprisoned.
When activists campaign publicly for change in Saudi Arabia, they risk arrest as heretics or terrorists.
وهناك طبعا شخصيات من أهلي يقول إحنا ما عندنا أي مشكلة إحنا ندعم الحملة عبر مواقع التواصل الاجتماعي ولكن إحنا ما نستطيع إحنا نتنبأ برد فعل الشرطة.
Khalid Asari, who worked for the Ministry of Health, began to post video messages pushing for reform. She has now left Saudi Arabia.
In Saudi Arabia, criticizing the government, criticizing religious people, are considered as acts of terror. And people are reporting on each other, targeting their fellow citizens. So everyone becomes, more religious than ever. Everybody becomes more pro-government than ever. So we're going into a fascist society.
Inside one of Saudi Arabia's upscale shopping malls, Yasser films the men who enforce the country's Islamic laws, the Saudi religious police. Dressed in traditional Islamic clothing, they patrol the streets and shopping malls. Their official title is the Committee for the Promotion of Virtue and the Prevention of Vice. Activists have been filming and sharing videos to expose their practices. and to show ordinary Saudis standing up to them. They force women to cover themselves and drive people out of cafes to go and pray. These rules are based on a strict form of Sunni Islam known as Wahhabism. It is the religion on which Saudi Arabia was founded. Here, the religious police are smashing bottles of alcohol they've confiscated. The religious police break up groups of young people playing music in public. But Yasser films his friends heading to a park to play the lute.
They're warning us, telling him if they see him play, there will be trouble. For me, music is my passion. It's a dream for me to play. But to them, it's immoral. It's a vice. It's a disgrace. It doesn't just come from the regime, but now others have started to believe this too.
In recent years, the Saudi government has made efforts to rein in the religious police, but they still have wide authority and act with autonomy. Yasser and his friends have been here for less than 5 minutes when the religious police show up. This was the last shot recorded before Yasser and his friends say they were assaulted.
They broke my finger today. They even smashed the lute.
All Saudis are expected to attend mosque every Friday. Yasser secretly films a cleric's sermon. The state Wahhabi ideology is taught to Saudi children from an early age. Yasser films a 14-year-old boy who shows him the books they use at his school.
المسيحيون هؤلاء حكمهم مقاتلتهم حتى ينتهوا طبعا هؤلاء سينحرون بالتالي المدرس ما يستحيل.
Saudi Arabia says it has made progress reforming its textbooks, removing the worst examples of prejudice. But opposition activists, especially those from the Shia community, see religious education as another way the regime controls the population.
The Saudi education system has been intended as an insurance policy, as a security measure to protect the ruling family and to mislead the millions of students into hatred of other religions, other cultures, and toward the Saudi ruling family.
طبعا ناخذ عن الشيعة انهم رافضة ومقاتلتهم وابعادهم عن دين الايمان لانهم كفار ونقاتلهم حيث امرنا الدين الاسلامي. ودليل ثاني وقاتل اليهود عزير الله وقاتل النصارى وقاتل اليهود عزير الله.
Despite promises of reform, the Saudi rulers have also tied themselves to the powerful conservative clerics who are supported by much of the population. In 2012, one secular activist publicly criticized the relationship between the rulers and the clerics.
موقع الليبراليون السعوديون هو أثار حفيظة المتشددين بصفة عامة في السعودية لأنه كان يفضح ممارساتهم وعلى وجه الخصوص ممارسات هيئة الأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر.
Raif Badawi wrote a blog on which he promoted liberal values and questioned the role of religion in Saudi life.
فذلك حملهم على محاولة تخويفي ومحاكمتي في الموقع الليبرالي السعودي على أنه يسيء للإسلام.
Badawi, a father of 3 young children, was arrested in 2012 and sentenced to 10 years in prison and 1,000 lashes for insulting Islam.
This is the square where they flogged the brother, Raif Badawi.
Yasser films the square in the city of Jeddah where Raif was lashed in public in January 2015. The lashing was secretly filmed by an activist.
I believe that Raif has been true to himself. I have a lot of respect for him. He didn't carry arms, he didn't kill anyone, he didn't blow anything up. All he did was express an opinion.
Raif has spent most of his sentence in one of Saudi Arabia's most notorious prisons, Bremen. The underground network managed to smuggle cameras into Bremen. What they found was chaos and lawlessness, and prisoners openly injecting heroin. Here, a prisoner is abused by his fellow inmates. Raif Badawi spent almost 4 years locked up here. His lawyer and dozens of other activists are also serving long jail sentences. Thousands of miles away, his wife Ensaf and 3 children have received asylum. They escaped Saudi Arabia after receiving death threats. They haven't seen their father for 4 years.
أنت بتعرف وينه بابا؟ وين؟
بالسجن.
بالسجن ليش؟
ليش ما أعرف.
شو عمل؟
بس هو ما عمل شيء، بس لأنه كتب وبعدين هذا وبعدين راح على السجن. بقول يا ريت إنه أرجع وأقول له إنه ما يكتب هذا.
إمتى؟ وأنت كم عمرك؟ بعد كم سنة؟
بس أنا نفسي إنه يجي اليوم.